All right, everyone, Jeremy Knopf here with another episode of the Public Relations Declassified Livestream. And in addition to our normal segments, we've also got a great interview with one of my favorite humans, Tom Krol. We're going to be talking a little bit about his journey from his beginning of his career to becoming a very well-known, recognized authority in the real estate coaching space. But we're going to go ahead and kick this off with an interesting story that came out just a little while ago. And this is tied to reputation management in an AI-driven world. Now, where this came from was a defamation lawsuit that popped up not too long ago, where Google gave an AI summary that reported a company, Wolf River Electric. Basically, the summary said that they had been sued by Attorney General Keith Ellison and that they had misled homeowners about costs and fees. Problem is, that never happened. The entire thing was completely hallucinated, completely made up by Google's AI, and basically it just invented this story out of thin air. Now, the problem comes down to these AI platforms are going to say things, they're going to publish things that are not necessarily true. If you've used AI at all, you've seen these scenarios where it just hallucinates, it pulls information out of thin air and makes things up because it's just trying to provide you with an answer. So Futurism covered the story just a little while ago, just a few days ago. And in the breakdown in the article, it says, per the suit, as quoted by the Star Tribune, who originally broke the story, the AI feature, and in this case, when we're talking about the AI feature, we're talking about Google's AIOs. The AI feature confidently fibbed that Wolf River Electric was facing a lawsuit from Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison for deceptive sales practices like lying to customers about savings and tricking homeowners into signing contracts with hidden fees. Now, they went on to say that the vast majority of AIOs are accurate and helpful, which if you've been on any of my live streams, you know that I do not agree with that in the slightest. But they go on to say, with any new technology, mistakes can happen. Yes, technically that's true, but these mistakes are kind of egregious. Google, of course, says that when they found out about it, they fixed it. But the problem here is this caused a lot of canceled contracts, some worth over $150,000 because of what they read in this AI overview. So this created a real problem for the company when the company had actually done absolutely nothing wrong. And it cost them money, it cost them damage to their reputation, and now it's costing them in wasted time and legal fees because they're having to sue Google to recoup the losses and the damage that Google inflicted on them. So this is a thing that's going to become far more common for all of us as these AI tools become more prevalent, as more people lean more heavily on them. And you're already seeing people lean very heavily on them at this point. But as time goes on, it's going to become a lot more common. So what do we do to prepare for this? Well, the first thing is you cannot be passive about this. You have to take steps to build your presence in these LLMs. Now, I've talked about this on some of the live streams. We talked about some of the ways that they get their information and some of the ways to make sure that correct information is in these systems. So if you haven't seen those previous episodes, I'd encourage you to check those out. There's a lot of great information as far as where they get those, how to put your information in there. And it's not as simple as just, going and telling the AI system, right? That doesn't really have any effect on the AI system's learning. That just has an effect on that immediate conversation right there. So check out those previous episodes. There's a wealth of information about getting your stuff into these LLMs. Getting featured in the media is a big part of that. And when we talk about getting featured in the media, we're talking about getting featured in these legitimate media outlets, not these bullshit pay-to-play ones where it's some publication that exists solely for the purpose of publishing bullshit content about people who are willing to pay a fee, right? We want to go into the legitimate media outlets. I'm actually working on a document, PDF, that has a breakdown of which sites these AI LLMs are using. The major media outlets are a key part of that, but there's also other websites that they're getting information from as well. Wikipedia, they get some information from. They get some information from technical standards bodies, IMDb, Amazon. There's a lot of places. So that's something I am going to be creating a comprehensive resource for you guys. But in the meantime, check out the previous episodes. We covered this specific topic in depth. Another thing you can do is be really active on social. And I don't just mean posting a bunch. I mean posting, but then also engaging so that you can build a highly engaged audience, right? People who actually are following you because they love the content and they love your personality and they want to see what you have to say and they want to engage with you. That plays a big role because these AI tools are looking at not just your follower count, because that's a very manipulatable KPI. They're looking at the engagement. They're looking at, do other people find this person, this profile useful? If they do, then it's more likely that the content you're putting out on social will also end up being cited in these LLMs. Case in point, I was doing a quick search this morning for Public Relations Declassified and saw that we've got this nice, big, robust AIO in Google's search results for it, where it's got a really great summary of the live stream and the content that we're creating, the topics we're talking about, the people we're interviewing. And then also it's got links to a number of previous episodes. It's got links to where these episodes live, both on YouTube and within the Spartan community. And if you guys have not checked out Spartan community, all of the live stream episodes are there. And those are all publicly available. Obviously, there's a lot of private members only content that's there as well, but all of the previous PRD episodes are available in the Spartan community as well as on YouTube. But that's an example of using social media effectively to start showing up in these AIOs and other LLMs that are out there, right? And then in the process of doing all of this, you want to make sure that you're getting out there and proactively putting information out there. Social media, in the media, on your website, everywhere that you possibly can where the LLMs might pick up this information. And then the other side of the equation is actively monitoring the output of these LLMs, both for your personal brand and for your company's brand. And you want to look for the information that is putting out to make sure that A, it's accurate. And then you want to, if you find anything that's wrong, whether it's just wrong and it's not a major issue and you just need to get it updated, or it's wrong, as is the case with Wolf River Electric, and there's a defamatory claim out there. In that case, you want to be especially aggressive and take action. And by take action, I mean be aggressive in your PR efforts, get your information out there, get it in the right places. And in some cases, as in it, where it's a case of defamation, then you want to get out there and issue lawsuits as well. And by the way, often those lawsuits will end up in the LLMs as well. But just the fact that there's a lawsuit in play tends to get these AI companies to fix their shit pretty quickly because, look, nobody wants to be in court besides lawyers. Nobody wins besides lawyers. So most companies want to get that resolved as quickly as possible. So typically, if there is something like that where you're being defamed by an AI system, most of the time a lawsuit being filed is enough to get that fixed. You're not going to have to actually go through the whole drawn out and expensive process of going through a trial. They're going to just fix it and move on. And this is speculation, but I also think that if that happens to you and you file a lawsuit, there's probably something they do on the back end to make sure that that kind of thing doesn't happen again with your particular entity. So you're probably going to be in a pretty strong position after that. So you likely won't have to worry about it again with that particular LLM. Okay, so next up, we're going to talk about one of my favorite people. We're going to interview Tom Krol. Now, if you don't know Tom, he is one of the nicest humans out there, just a genuine giver. But he is known as the coach to coaches. He built his reputation first by being a real estate investor and then by teaching other people how to invest in real estate. And he's been coaching people for years. And that eventually led to a bigger company that he now runs, which is basically teaching coaches how to be better coaches. And that company is called Coaching Inc. So we're going to go ahead and pull Tom up here. Chrissy, if you can go ahead and turn Tom's cam on for us. Tom, good to see you, brother.
Good morning. How are you, man? It's good to see you.
Good to see you too, brother. Glad you could join us, man.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So, Tom, I'd like to start with a little bit about your background. And I want to kind of highlight what that journey looked like, because you're at a point right now where anytime anyone in the real estate space, and now it's kind of bleeding out bigger into the coaching space in general, you're the guy that everyone says is one of the top experts all the way around. That wasn't always the case. You didn't start off as the absolute best out there, right? So
no.
And there's some facets to your journey that I want to unpack here, but I want you to talk a little bit about kind of how you got started and then how your journey started progressing as you started developing some skills.
Yeah, I mean, how far back should we go? All the way to starting off before I've had any success at all, or
yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. I mean, I'll share with your audience. First of all, Jeremy, thank you for having me on, brother. I'm a huge fan of yours.
My pleasure.
A big believer in all your expertise, which I've used, because PR is the proactive way to protect your reputation management, and it works. I was, as a matter of fact, right before this interview, I was on with William Tingle, and I just happened to be cleaning out that drawer right behind me, and I found where I was on the Inc. 500 fastest growing list, and that was pretty cool. I forgot all about this thing, and so I figured, I'm going to be talking to Jeremy today. I'll pull this out, but I have the same sad story as everybody else, right? I, started off, I was the worst in school, and barely graduated. I didn't break 1,000 on my SAT, and it was untimed, by the way, right? So I'd never read a book. The only book I ever read my whole entire career, even into my 20s, was Dr. Dolittle in middle school. I was in 7th grade in detention, and I was bored out of my mind, and there was a Dr. Dolittle book on the detention table there, and I just sat and read it because there was literally nothing else to do. It was, I just went through like everybody else. I was confused. My teachers told me that I had learning. I had problems learning. I was an audible learner and an audio learner, a visual learner. I don't know about any of that stuff. Diagnosed with ADHD and OCD and everything under the sun. And the real problem was I just didn't find what was interesting to me, like so many entrepreneurs don't. And I struggled from job to job to job. I was fired in 7 years from 5 jobs until finally I just found real estate was my first adventure. I just became an entrepreneur, and I did my first deal. And then after that, I started teaching people how to do deals. And then I just started teaching people how to become a coach. And I think that if you were to say to me, Tom, what was that, how could you help other people? It's the same old ancient advice that I'm sure you've had 1,000 times on this show, and everyone wants to know what the secret is, and no one implements the secret, right? What is the secret? Rule number 8, read 8 pages a day, right? But there's a lot of people who will, they'll listen to a book and they'll say, I just read a book. But there's not a lot of people who will read a book and say, I just listened to a book, right? So I think people know, right, that it's better to read. Everyone's searching for secret. There is no secret. The secret is I've never met anybody with any real success or wealth who didn't go through a season of outworking everyone else around them. And I've never met really a lot of people with any success or wealth who are not readers. And there's a few little basic rules like that, but I got a mentor. I did everything that he told me to do. I took massive imperfect action. I adopted an attitude of progress, not perfection. I stopped caring what everyone thought about me. Actually, I should change that a little and say, I think a lot of times people say, well, like, oh, rich people don't care what people think about them. That's not really true. For me, and this is one of my rules in business, is number 5, is I only take feedback or care about what people think of me if they're in one of 5 categories. They love me, they pay me, I pay them, they regulate my industry, or they're already where I want to be. And if they're not in those top 5 people, I don't care how other people run their household. But as far as my household goes, if you want to lead or teach or pour into my family, into my children and my wife, you darn well better be in one of those top 5 people, or we're not even going to let you through the threshold of my front door. And again, I know some people think that's severe, but I think that's what causes, so much suffering, is that people who are struggling tend to just take advice from literally anyone. And that's just insane to me.
Yeah. That segues really well into something that you've always been adamant about. Before I bring that up, you mentioned Rule 8 and you mentioned Rule 5. Give us the URL for I know you've got the downloadable rules thing. Give me that URL. I'll have Chrissy drop it in the group. Listen, for everyone who's watching, whether it's live or after the fact, you guys need to download this thing. Tom has this incredible rule book that he runs his entire business off of. So give Chrissy that URL real quick, and she'll pull it up and drop it into the group for everybody.
We are going to this is going to be called in marketing what's called exclusivity and scarcity. So here's the deal. We just got a manuscript for a publisher. So the publisher requested the manuscript, and they are resorting the rules. So we actually took the rules down. But if you want to go through a lot of them, you're going to find them in Facebook. Facebook, it's just Tom Krol, Krol. And it is just, it's going to be on the Coaching Inc. podcast, which, by the way, we just now are 2 spots away from the top 100 shows on Apple, which is phenomenal, especially considering how niche. But the rules are simple. Rule number 1 is revenue in first position. And that's the one that you have to, if everybody wants the rules, I can tell you this. The first one is get out of Panera Bread and Starbucks and listening to podcasts, and you reward yourself with education. Go and take massive and perfect action and put revenue in first position, not your stupid logo, the name of your company, finding the right domain name, ordering a conference table, leasing office space, embossing your signature, finding brand colors, building a funnel, building a website, funnels, tunnels, seminars, webinars, paid ads. Make a sale. That's how you do it. Revenue in first position. That's really that's why it's rule number 1.
I love that. So, and that brings us right back to the segue anyway, which is the thing that you have always been so adamant about. And this plays such a role in somebody becoming a recognized authority. And that is that you focus on results. You focus on actually achieving the fucking goal, right? Not just going out and trying to be like, hey, look at how amazing I am. I'm going and doing this thing, or I'm going to speak here, or I'm going to do this. It's that mistake that so many people make where they want to fake it till they make it. They think if I put on a big enough image, the success will come. And it's actually the other way around. The image comes from the success. So let's talk a little bit about that, because that's a mindset shift for a lot of people. This is something we deal with clients often. And this is even successful people, right? They want to get to that next level, and they just want to create the image of it rather than doing what's needed to actually get there. So talk a little bit about your thoughts on that.
It's interesting because as you unpack that, right? there's so much to unpack with that, because it is so easy to get caught up in the drivers of what causes the attitude of fake it till you make it. But it is absolutely the worst approach. It is the most painful, that will cause the most suffering. And what I would say is, because it gets in the way, it comes from ego and it gets in the way of everything else. But here's what I would say. Life is very short. Don't lose your usefulness to other people. So if you know how to do something, share something. And what you learn as a coach is that authenticity is number one, and this is the key, and this is one of my rules. Real progress, it only comes from authenticity. It only comes from honesty. And I'm not saying that because I'm a good person. I'm not a good person. I'm a bad person, just like everybody else. I sin. I've probably had 10 times more sins than everybody listening already today, right? But I mean this from a practicality standpoint, from a business standpoint. It is the best business practice, which is this. People who get burnout, who make a lot of money and they have nothing to show for it, people who are struggling, they're paycheck to paycheck, they never have any money, they never have any network, the woe is me, they're always in a pity party, they always, every time you talk to them, there's a latest emergency, right? There's always, all of those people are in that fake it to make it crowd. You know, they fix their credit so that they fix their credit so that they can lease a car or finance a car. No, right? No, don't do that, right? Why would you buy a car you can't afford? Because you're in the fake it till you make it category. So what I would say is this: the only thing, and this, because I struggled for a long, long time, and the only thing that made a difference to me was when I finally just came to the place where I hit rock bottom and I said, okay, I'm going to drop the ego. I'm going to submit. And the only thing that matters to me is personal experience. I see this all the time, especially in coaching. People will say like, well, I don't really need to have personally achieved something in order to coach it because, and then they always they always do this. This is what they do. They say, because this really popular coach coached this really popular athlete to win this really big championship, and the coach never played that particular game. And it's a hard no. I'm telling you guys right now, if you want to learn something, personal experience, you have to learn it from people who have done it. And that was my biggest mistake. I was taking all this feedback from people, and I really realized that coaching it's not the information, right? There's nothing that I can coach you that you can't learn in 15 minutes on YouTube or AI, right? You don't need me. What is the coach actually giving you? The coach is giving you permission. They're letting you borrow their confidence. They're giving you clarity of instruction on one set of instructions. So I think that the most important thing here is authenticity, and burnout and suffering and disappointment. What it really comes from is not being authentic. And again, this sounds weird because it sounds like I'm saying like, oh, I'm a good person. I'm not a good person. I'm just saying like, when you are moving and moving and moving and moving and you're not going anywhere, that's the hamster wheel. That's what causes the burnout. You need to step off the hamster wheel and just take one baby step. It's like you have blinders on. One baby step in the right direction. Just baby steps, a big goal. Baby steps, big goal with horse blinders on. Get off the hamster wheel. And one of the ways to get off the hamster wheel is to be honest with who? With yourself. But most people are not. It's not that they're liars. It's that they're just not really honest with themselves on who they are and what they're doing and what's been working and what hasn't been working. And there's a lot of things that trap people. You know, there's whole entire industries that are made to trap people in that cycle for a long time, and it'll trap you and it'll keep you there for decades. So I think that, authenticity is the key if you want to. Authenticity and personal experience is really the key if you want to start making some real changes right now. And those changes happen like that. It's not a long time. That happens right away.
Well, that authenticity, that's something we've talked about a lot on the show. When you're being inauthentic, you may seem like you're coming off confident. You may seem like everything's solid, but there's just something off in your energy. And people may not know that you're full of shit, but they get that gut feel that something's not right. And whether that's, you're pitching the media and that pitch doesn't quite land right, or you're trying to get a JV deal done and people just don't move all the way across the finish line, it's because they can sense that you're inauthentic. And that's such a huge thing.
Brother.
One of the other things you've done that I absolutely love, Tom, is you have put a lot of time and energy into building and leveraging a loyal community. And, you've done that by being authentic, because if you're not authentic, nobody's going to be attracted to you. But you've also done it by really giving back and pouring into people. So let's talk a little bit about that for a while.
I'll give you a tactical way to do this, right? Because everybody doesn't know how to do this. And I'm going to give your listeners something that they can do right now that is going to radically shift the trajectory of their life and is going to make their life easier. It's going to fill their purse or their wallet with a ton of cash, more than they can ever spend in a lifetime. And it's going to bring a lot of peace, and it's going to bring a lot of peace and joy and happiness into their lives as soon as they implement this. So not everyone's going to implement it, but I'm going to give it to your audience. And I developed it over looking at my own success and how I was able to build a community. And, one of my rules in business is rule number 14, the people most likely to pay you in the future are the people who paid you in the past. And, so if you need a new house right now, if you want to buy a vacation home and you're like, what should I do right now for money? Go to the people who've already paid you in the past and create a higher level ticket and help them in some way and sell that. That's the fastest way. Where does that community come from? And this is one of the books here. It's from Robert Cialdini. He wrote a book called Influence. And I'm probably mispronouncing his name, but it's Robert Cialdini. Is the book the name of the book is Influence. He talks about in this book something called reciprocity. Here's what I want you to do, guys. If you're listening to Jeremy and I right now, I want you to get a calendar. You can get a wall calendar with the big boxes, or you could just use your phone. And every single day, I want you to write down Monday through Friday for 8 weeks. I want you to write down 40 people. We call this 40 good people. This is rule number 40 in the 88 rules of principles of business. Rule number 40 is you write down every single day, Monday through Friday, one person's name, and you do that for 8 weeks. That will equal 40 people. And every single day that you wake up on your workday, as soon as your workday starts, you see Joe McCall, Jeremy Nuff, Zach Childress, Matt Andrews, Tiffany High, whoever it is that is on your network, right? And you say, I'm going to do something for them. I'm not going to expect anything in return. I'm just going to do something to make their life better. What can I do? Well, let's see. I know one of my contacts just fell down and hurt himself. We sent a thing of soup to him, right? Like a get well soon. I know that one of my friends has a podcast they just released that they've been trying to increase in the rankings. So what did I do? I liked the show. I subscribed to the show. I let one episode play in the background. I rated the show and I left an SEO review. And then I sent them a note and I said, hey, I just saw your podcast. I thought it was great. I subscribed. I left your review and I shared it with my audience, right? So every single day, start your workday by just loving on one of the 40 good people who should be in your network. And even if you don't hear from them in the first week, right after week 8 is done, on week 1, you start the 40 people all over again, and you do it again, and you do it again, and you just let that list rotate every 8 weeks. And trust me, when you want to do a joint venture, when you want to do an affiliate launch, when you have a new product that you need help with, people are going to come out of the woodwork, and they are going to help you promote it. They're going to bend over backwards. They're going to show up. They're going to fly in, right? And this works. If you want to increase your network, the first thing you got to do is stop hanging out with the wrong people, the people who are cheating on their spouses, cursing all the time. They're always in an emergency. They always have a problem. They're cheating on their taxes. They're bragging. They're doing drugs. They're drinking too much. Every text message from them is an inappropriate picture. Eliminate those people. Get rid of them, because the good people won't come near you. They can smell those people on you. And if you think you could spend time with those people and it doesn't affect you, that's like saying you're going to go swimming and not get wet. So you get rid of those people, make your 40 good people, and every single workday for 8 weeks, love on one of those people. and then go to, as soon as 8 weeks is over, start on week 1 again and do the same exact thing for the same exact set of 40 people. It will change your life, and you will quadruple your net worth in a very, very, very short time. I guarantee it.
I love that, man. And you are a master of that. And it's created a hell of an asset for you, right? Like I obviously there's a business case to be made for it, but also, it's also just a good thing to do as a human, right?
It's a good life.
You're right. You're helping out other people. So it's a win all the way around. It makes you feel better, but it also gives you a tremendous business asset. And when you've got all these people who are singing your praises, that is tremendous social proof.
Right.
That makes you appear as an authority in your industry, because why else would all of these amazing people be singing your praises?
1,000%.
I love it. There's something else that you've done very effectively. And there's parts of this story that I'm not sure if you want to talk about. But,
okay.
So one
is
of
it
the
my
big
Facebook debacle?
No,
on
it's
again,
not
off
that.
again. Okay.
But that is a quite an interesting story too.
Yes.
No, so it's about the trajectory. We all have a particular trajectory in our careers. And where I see people go wrong sometimes is they'll get to a position where they're comfortable, and then they kind of take their foot off the gas. They coast for a bit. You've been really consistent about constantly improving and growing and just going to the next step at every opportunity. In fact, there was the part of the story that I said you might not want to talk about was when you had originally sold Coaching Inc. and then bought it back and all of that. But basically, let's talk a little bit about whichever parts you want to talk about, kind of the trajectory and how you've continually improved. And that's something, like I said, that's something that when people look at somebody and they see you just shooting up like a rocket, and then all of a sudden you just kind of fizzle out, that takes some of your impact, some of your authority away. Whereas if you continue moving, the assumption is, well, this person must be really fucking good, because how else would they continually grow and improve over all this time when everybody else mostly just fizzles out? So talk a little bit about what your trajectory has looked like over your career.
It's interesting because so Julie and I have 5 kids: Logan, Lacey, Lily, Lucas, Levi, and our dog Luna, who's back there.
Sounds like a Dr. Seuss book.
Yes, it's very much so. So we, I would say this. I think that after so I sold my company. The first, it was actually at that point I had started a few others, but with the Wholesaling Inc. was a coaching company, which I had sold, and that company did amazingly well. Thousands of clients, millions of dollars, sold for millions. All that good stuff. We ended up having to take the company back. The person who bought it originally had some personal issues that came up. Awesome human being, but just had a few hiccups. And then we had to resell the company a second time. What I would say is, I'll tell you a story. So I sold the company, and we have a cabin up in the mountains, and Julie and I and the kids went up there. We were supposed to be up there for 3 weeks after the sale, kind of, take your foot off the gas and pump the brake a little. On the third day, we were at the cabin, I was sitting on the front porch, and I'm literally reading Jeff Olson's book, The Slight Edge. And I just said, okay, everybody up, let's go. We're going back home. And we packed up the car and left. So I don't know if that's one of my learning disabilities acting up, but I would say this. I love my family by loving my clients. And I don't mean that, and again, like I'm some kind of good person. Like I mess up all the time, and I mess up with clients all the time, and I mess up a million different things in companies and businesses. But I think that when I got started, I had these goals and these markers. And if I hit this, I'm going to do this. And if I hit that, I'm going to do that. I think that is very fluid. I think that, I had this conversation once with Chris Craddock out of Virginia. If you guys don't know him, he's a sweetheart. And, we were talking about this, a lot of entrepreneurs, they constantly are moving the goalposts, right? They, it's, I want 1 million, and then 2 million. And then, and they keep moving the challenge is that I I think we want to challenge ourselves, right? Here's for anybody who's listening right now, and you're like, oh, this doesn't apply to me. Let me give you something that you can use right now to help you in your life. And it's the knowledge that whatever you're afraid of, right? Because I've met thousands of entrepreneurs and everyone talks about a fear of failure, but I've never seen that. I've never really met it. I don't think I've ever, I used to say I could count on one hand, but I don't even know if that's true. I've never actually met an entrepreneur who has a fear of failure. But I've met thousands of entrepreneurs who have a fear of success. I think there's something in our belly that tells us that there's safety in the herd. And yes, the whole herd is suffering, but we're all together. And if you're in that school of fish or that herd of cows or that pack of animals, and you leave that school, it's a little more dangerous and you're a little more vulnerable. So it's better to just be acquiesce, right? Be like everyone else and stay in the herd. What I would say is this: the pain or the suffering from going out and fulfilling your potential is never going to be as bad as not fulfilling your potential. The pain and suffering that's caused by being a person who does not get in the arena, to quote Teddy Roosevelt, and is not in the arena to, the good man who is doing what needs to be done instead of being in the spectator seats. The suffering that comes from not fulfilling your potential is far, far worse and far greater than the suffering that's caused by going out and having the challenges of leaving the herd. So what I would say is, once you know who you are and once you make that decision and you're going to go out and do it, I think that's what happens. I think, a lot of these stories of entrepreneurs that I'm sure that you have on your show, I think that's what happens. I think we all have this story of, oh, I was living in my car, I barely graduated, I got kicked out of college. I think the reason we have that is because there's a point in so many people's lives where they hit rock bottom, and it can be the strongest of foundations, or they can find out that actually there's a trap door at the bottom of rock bottom and you could just keep going. And I think that's what happens is a lot of entrepreneurial people, we don't like to submit to other people. We want to own our own businesses. We're not good employees. We're sometimes not good students. I think that we just hit rock bottom and we're like, hey, this isn't working. Now I need to make this work. And then our priorities all kind of shift. And, why would we stop? It's so, I think one thing, Jeremy, here, right, is like, you have to define what is success and what is wealth, right? So wealth, to me, this is how I define it. Wealth is an external comparison to other people, right? So on this phone call right now, one of us is wealthier than the other, either in money, in time left, in health, in mobility, in transportation, in network, in relationships, right? One of us, and that's fluid, that can change, right? If you start having chest pain and I start having chest pain and your brother lives in your house and he's the best heart surgeon in the world, you're way wealthier than me at that moment, right? Or vice versa. So what I would say is that wealth is an external comparison to other people. Wealthy people always have something that less wealthy people don't have, and that's more options and better options. Success is 180 degrees different. Success is an internal comparison to your ideals, right? So who's more successful on this line? Who knows? Right? I have no idea. You don't know mine. I don't know whatever your definition of success is. It's always some variation of a good night's sleep. So I think that when you become an entrepreneur and you're having success and you're gaining wealth, I think you put your head on the pillow at night and you just fall peacefully asleep. You're not up at 3:00 in the morning riddled with anxiety and crippling depression. You just are like, everything is right in the world, right? So I think that when you have that, I remember the first time I was on Bigger Pockets, or the only time I was on Bigger Pockets, and it was Brandon and Josh said to me, oh, you're like on drugs. You're so, I was like, yeah, because I suffered for so long. And now it's like, I can't believe you could just imagine a company and then build it. And now I've done that so many times where I've exited from companies and I have partners and I have equity positions and revenue share positions in all these companies and interest, and I'm buying and selling, and that just could come from your mind. I mean, if I could do it, anybody could do it. So why would you stop? Like, it's so much joy and peace, and I think it's great. It's wonderful. I love it. So I guess that's what keeps me going is I really enjoy it. I never wake up and dread my day. I look forward to it every morning.
Love it. Love it. So let's talk about what you're doing today. You've got a lot of really cool things you're working on. You've got your coaching program, you've got the podcast, which is kicking ass, and you've got a summit coming up here pretty soon. So let's unpack those for a second.
Yeah. So very exciting. And I appreciate your help with me on this because I couldn't do it without you. And guys, I mean, yeah, it's Coaching Inc. It is the #1 mastermind and course in the country for coaches and course creators. We get together, we collaborate, we build each other's email lists, we build each other's podcasts up, we share what's working right now, what's not working to attract high-ticket clients. I'm the host. I'm the low man on the totem pole. We've got the biggest names in the whole country who come in, all of the largest coaches and course creators and consultants and community and mastermind members are all there. Next one is going to be in Nashville, Tennessee in October 27th, 28th, and 29th. And it's really an awesome journey to be on. Basically, I'm taking everything that I use to build up Wholesaling Inc. and using it in Coaching Inc. To share with my members there. And then we have all the other awesome people. Brent Daniels, who now owns Wholesaling Inc., he'll be there. And it's going to be a great adventure. We have really just awesome people all sharing. You're going to be there, which is phenomenal. So I wouldn't do it without you. And it's a great adventure. I really like it.
Love it. I think it's easily one of the best I've experienced. And we've got, there's so many great people there as well. You've got like Pat Precourt, absolute genius when it comes to mindset stuff.
Yeah.
Francis Ablola for AI. Patrick Riddle, funnels. Like there's just so many different facets to all of the different areas of business. You've of course got the coaching side, but then you've got all these other facets that people need. So I love that. And it's not just the material, but it's also the connections. It's the relationships, and it's a game changer.
That's the key, is you're one relationship away. Most people don't realize that your next big iteration or your next big level of income is not going to come from something you learned. It's going to come from someone you meet. And
absolutely,
people, they don't realize that but anybody listening to this, if you go back to see like where you've had your biggest increases in revenue, it's always tied to a person you met 100% of the time. So I think that's really key. And that's what we try to facilitate there is we're going to focus on affiliate launches, joint ventures, and we're going to highlight with Zach Childress and Bill Allen and Brian Tripp and Sherman Ragland and a few other people, the local model, which is going to be key at that event.
Outstanding. I look forward to seeing that. All right. So for everyone who's listening, I highly encourage you guys to go find Tom on social media, connect with him. Chrissy did drop the Coaching Inc. website as well as the summit link into the chat. So check that out. If that's something that is of interest to you, then definitely get in touch with Tom. It's an amazing group, a lot of great resources, a lot of great relationships there. And Tom has really done an amazing job of curating some of the best minds in the business community. So I cannot recommend it highly enough. And Tom's just an amazing human. So bam. I would encourage you guys to look him up on social, connect with him, check out the summit that Chrissy dropped in the chat. And Tom, brother, it's great having you on today, man.
Brother, I'll see you in about 120 days in Nashville.
I'm sure we'll see each other before then.
I'm sure we will. God bless. Be well. Thank you for having me on. It's an honor. Enjoy the day, guys.
All right, brother. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, everyone. So that was a hell of a story of Tom's journey. I encourage you guys to check him out. But in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and jump into how to write a press release that gets attention. Now, this is something that a lot of people get wrong. They look at a press release from a few different perspectives, and most of them are wrong. Some people think press releases are pointless. I actually used to believe that as well. I no longer do because I had adjusted my approach to leveraging them. There was a time much earlier in my career where I loved them. They were valuable. Then they kind of became less effective, but not because the medium wasn't effective, but more because I wasn't using them in the right way, right? And the way that they work has changed over the years. So at once upon a time, a press release was You would put it out, journalists would see it, they'd write stories about that story, and it was pretty easy. It was kind of like, click some buttons and everything just kind of moves along. Then as social media became much more prevalent, there was a lot of direct access. People could get the information they needed without having to go to the wire services. Press releases started to become less effective. But what I found a few years ago was there is still an effective way to use them, and that is to put out an effective press release and then leverage that press release to then directly pitch that story to journalists. And this gives you kind of a best of both worlds scenario where you can put a lot of information in a press release, and then your pitch can be a lot tighter, a lot more concise, a lot more impactful. And then you use that to drive them back to the press release where they can get all of the information. And in taking this approach, there was a campaign we did a while back for a software company in the real estate industry. And this was probably one of the most effective ones that we've ever done, where we put out, first of all, it was a killer press release. We're going to talk a little bit about the structure of that, but it was absolutely killer in all aspects. Then we turned around and pitched the story to numerous journalists and got a lot of organic features from that, but also in the process, because now the press release is out here, now all these other organic hits are coming up, other journalists started running with a story even without ever contacting us or our client. So it created kind of a snowball effect, and it was incredibly powerful. Out of one press release, we generated over a dozen organic media features as well. So super powerful, super effective, and it had a tremendous impact for the client. So let's talk about how to get the press release structured correctly so that you can have that kind of an impact. The first thing is the topic needs to be legitimately newsworthy. All right. The days are gone of putting out a bullshit press release because you launched a new product or a new course or something like that, right? If you're going to launch something and do a press release about it, it has to be something significant. So, let's say you're a coach and you create a new coaching program, that's probably not really newsworthy. If you have a super intense boot camp where they'll come in for, 3 days, 5 days, a week, whatever, and go through this intense, rigorous program to have a complete transformation, that might be something that's newsworthy. So, there was a tactic that was used a lot for about a decade or so in the SEO industry where people would put out press releases, and it would usually be about absolute bullshit, right? The topics would be meaningless. They would just put out the press releases so that it would get syndicated at all of these other outlets. And then from there, they would get all these links back to their website. Search engines don't really pay attention to those links anymore. In fact, a lot of press release wire services don't really allow a whole bunch of links anymore anyway. A lot of them have really cut down how many links you can include in a press release anyway. So that tactic kind of destroyed the value of press releases for a while. But like I said earlier, if you use it in the way that I talked about, then it can still be incredibly valuable. So we have to find a legitimately newsworthy story. And there's a few reasons for this. One, if it's not newsworthy, nobody's going to give a shit. No one's going to pay attention that you're announcing that you just hired some random person that nobody's ever heard of. Nobody cares that you moved to a new location. None of that stuff is newsworthy. If you just cured cancer, hell yes, that's newsworthy. If you just invented some very powerful software tool that revolutionizes people's lives, and it actually has to do that. It's not just another CRM or another AI tool or something. It has to have real significant impact. If it's a newsworthy story, people will be interested in it. And that means that if a journalist sees it, they're more likely to actually write a story about it or do a TV segment about it. But if it's not newsworthy, that's never going to happen. So what we want to do here is we want to open up with some kind of emotionally engaging hook. Now, breaking news is a great way to do this. most things for most people are not breaking news. So most of the things happening in your business are probably not going to be breaking news. But you can tie other things that are going on in your industry or in the broader economy or whatever. You can tie breaking news from that into what's going on with you. So, for example, if you're in the real estate industry, which I know a lot of our listeners are, there was a proposal recently by the DeSantis administration here in Florida to eliminate property taxes. There's a million ways as a real estate investor or a real estate agent or a developer that you could leverage that piece of news in your story. And if you can tie it directly to what you're doing or what your company does, then that's a way to tie breaking news into what you're doing. Another one that I like to use is called a startling statistic. So here's a particularly dark statistic that a lot of people don't know. Did you guys know that we lose 22 veterans a day to suicide? Most people have no clue. That's the kind of statistic that if you use that in the opening of your press release, if it's relevant to you, right? Like whatever you're using has to be relevant to you and your story. But if that's relevant to you and you use that in your opening, that's a hell of a lot more likely to get somebody's attention, to get them to read further into that press release. And then big names are another one. So, if we stick with the real estate topic here, let's say you're getting into business in some way with Grant Cardone. That's huge. That's the kind of thing that people pay attention to. And so these are some ways to get people emotionally engaged in that first sentence. And once you hook them there, then they're more likely to go in and read the rest of the press release, potentially find something valuable in it, and this potentially turns into a media feature. So once we've hooked them, now we want to go into our impact statement. So who does this affect? How does it affect them? Why does this matter, right? And you start breaking that down so that they can see why their audience should care about this issue. From there, we're going to roll into some supporting info and data. And, basically this is all of the data from credible third-party sources. You can't really cite your own reports or your own findings. You have to leverage other sources of information that validate your claim about what's going on, who it's going to impact, how it's going to impact them, things like that. And then we'll close it out with a call to action. Nice and simple. In terms of a press release, I approach a press release a little bit differently than I do a pitch. But generally, you'll just, say something like, for additional information or whatever, contact so-and-so. And then you've got the name, the title, email address, phone number, all of that. So the process is pretty simple. It's a matter of getting all of that dialed in, getting the messaging really smooth and compelling on an emotional level. So we are going to be doing a workshop in July's Spartan community, where we're actually going to be going through, I've got a few press releases that we've already got that we're going to break down and kind of explain how the various parts of these press releases follow this process. And then we're going to work with a few of you guys on actually getting your press releases dialed in, getting you guys answers to the questions you have about the press releases you guys may be working on. So in that workshop, that's going to be in the Spartan community on the third Thursday of every month, but in this case, it'll be July. So, all right, so we're going to roll into Jeremy's PR PSA, and then I know we've got some questions that popped in on social media, so I'll address those after the PR PSA, and then we'll call it a wrap for today. So today's Jeremy's PR PSA is, in today's digital always-on environment, you need to monitor, promote, and protect your brand in more places than ever and all at once. So what I mean here is, we all know that we have to look at the media outlets. We all know that now we have to look at social media too, right? We also have to look at these AI tools. What kind of information do the LLMs have? What are they saying about us? We have to monitor all of this proactively. And then we also have to take steps to get the correct information out there. And if we find something incorrect or something defamatory, we have to take steps to Get that fixed, get that corrected so that our brand is not being damaged. So that being said, I know we've got a couple of questions here. We got some on Facebook. I'm going to have Chrissy pull up. There was a couple that came in on X as well. We can't pull Facebook onto the screen for some reason. So Daniel Faust had asked, so what would you trust in the AI world? The short answer to that is absolutely nothing. I don't take anything from AI at face value. I am going to double check and verify literally every single thing that I find on AI. Typically, whether it's ChatGPT, Google AIOs, Claude, whatever, a lot of the statistics and data and information that they give you, they will also provide you with sources. So there will be a link in there. So I always make sure that I'm going to check every piece of data that I find from these tools before I take anything at face value. And this is something I've talked about in previous live streams where I've seen people use these AI tools to like they'll write their pitch, or they're pulling statistics and data, but then that data is wrong. And now they look like a fool. So it's bad enough if the journalist sees it and knows that it's bogus, but it's even worse if you get out there in an article or you get out there in a TV segment and you say a thing that turns out to be completely false, and maybe it's a thing that everybody in the industry should know that it's false, and it really can damage your credibility. So I think these AI tools are great. They can provide a ton of leverage, but we can never take anything at face value from there. So that's my thoughts on that. Chrissy, I know we had something from Wayne on X. Can you pop that up on the screen here? Let's give that a shot, see how that works. All right. Whoops. Pop that back up again, please. I clicked something here. All right. Can a lawsuit, and this is coming from Wayne Rassin over on X, can a lawsuit name an AI company as a defendant for the advice that they give? Man, that is a great question, Wayne. I do not know the answer to that. I know that an AI company can be sued for defamatory content, as was the case with that the company we talked about this morning, the Wolf River Electric Company. Whether or not an AI company can be sued for the information they give, I kind of feel like the answer is no. But if we have any legal experts, maybe somebody can drop us a comment somewhere and just let us know. My gut says no, because there have been cases where AI has given people terrible advice. Google was one of the ones I covered when they first rolled out their AIOs, where, for example, that one of the treatments they gave for kidney stones was drinking urine. Obviously not great medical advice there. But there's a lot of really bad advice that these tools can give. And a lot of times it can have very detrimental consequences. But ultimately, it's on the user whether they choose to take that advice or not. There was even a case where somebody was using AI as a kind of like a therapist. And the AI system basically said, well, you're kind of right. Your life does suck and you should probably just kill yourself. And so, not very good advice. But I don't think there's any real legal liability there. But a lot of things in the AI space are evolving very quickly. So that's something that may change. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. But if we've got any legal experts who might have an opinion on that, go ahead and drop us a comment on X or in the Facebook group or wherever, and let us know if you guys have any insight on that. I don't think we have any other questions for today, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. If you guys found value in this, I would love it if you'd drop us a comment here and there, whatever platform you happen to be watching on. If you're not already in the Facebook group, be sure to join us there. And we look forward to seeing you all in the next episode. All right. Thanks, everyone.